Hello again, and welcome to the Raelian View. As always, we're discussing our topic of the day with Brigitte Boisselier, who's the wonderful member of the Raelian Movement, and Thomas Kaenzig, who, if you've watched our previous podcasts, you know who we are. So I won't go into too long introducing ourselves. My name is Glenn Carter, and uh, let's go straight into it, shall we? I guess what we should do start by making is a little bit of an announcement, which is that the Raelian Movement, for those who know who we are, but the Raelian Movement decided very recently, or the leader of the Raelian Movement, Maitreya Rael, decided to close the Israeli Raelian Movement, the Israeli wing of the Raelian Movement, which is a hugely significant gesture, I guess you could say, and instead, it was ordered to establish a Palestinian Raelian movement instead for the region, which is a hugely important and very powerful statement about where the sympathies of the Raelian movement perhaps lie in that situation. So, let's jump right in. How do you feel about the change, this sort of new revelation that's happened regarding the movement in the Middle East? Brigitte.
Yeah. Well, we have to put that decision in the context of the Raelian philosophy, because we have been now, the Raelian philosophy states that we have been created by human beings coming from another planet, advanced scientists, and they created all form of lives, and then they also let us develop by ourselves while sending regularly prophets, right? They have been sending a lot of prophets to the Jewish people. The Jewish people have a very special link with these creators, right? And so they ask the first temple to be built and the second temple to be built, and regularly there have been destruction of those, and the people of the Jewish people disseminated all over the planet, and then again disseminated. So there have been so many events around that, because they have a special relationship, but the request that these scientists, these creators, the Elohim did to them is that they have to carry the teaching of their teaching, and then especially the 10 Commandments, and all these, you should not kill, and then just the shouldn't kill has been betrayed so many times, and betrayed again right now in a horrible way. Right? So the goal, the mission that they were given was to transmit the information or give all the teachings of the Elohim and prepare the welcome. That has been given, that mission has been given to the last prophet, that is Rael, because the Jewish people didn't do their job, right? So Rael has been brought to earth so that he gathered again enough people around his around this philosophy, so that we can build the third temple, the embassy of the Raelians, right? And that has to be done in Jerusalem. So it's again going back to that region. And for 7 times we requested to the people, to the government of Israel, to have land and the authorization to build that embassy, and that was refused. It was decided that the embassy, obviously not being able to be built in Jerusalem, could be built around, and then in any country around the world. So that was a big rupture already with that special link that the Elohim have with Jerusalem. They were abandoning that, right? And then further on, and I think it was in 2015, where they sent another very strong message to the Jewish people, saying that their protection were removed, and that's what we observe now. The they did only fulfill their mission, and they have no reason to be in that region anymore. And that's why we see all these bombs landing on that land. So this is a close relationship between the Elohim and the Jewish people and the Raelian people. And what is happening now is part of that story, that ongoing story of a relationship between the Elohim and the people of Earth. Yeah.
Yes, because I think it's fair to say that the Jewish people in their scriptures have had the ability to recognize Rael, Maitreya Rael, as the long-awaited prophet, the Messiah, who's been foretold to come and unify the whole planet. And they've chosen in their wisdom to. I think I read in one of the postscript in saying that that a chief rabbi stating that Rael may well be the one who's foretold, and no Jewish person must do anything to hinder him. But yet they're still not prepared to acknowledge him as the Messiah. So, Thomas, what is the way forward? Because if we're opening a Palestinian Raelian movement, obviously there are many Jewish Raelians. I mean, say Jewish Raelians, Israeli Raelians, ex-Jews who are now converted to being Raelian. During the conflict, is that going to cause any difficulty there for them meeting together, or is there a good relationship between Palestinian Raelians and Israeli Raelians? What do you know anything about the relationship between the actual two tribes, as it were?
I don't have, much inside information. Obviously, I remember talking to some people from Israel. The issue they have is the people, Palestinians who live in Gaza and the West Bank. They're almost, I mean, we know it. They're cut off, right? It's like a prison with their own system. So there's very little. They cannot physically meet and everything. If I look at the news coverage, for some of you may have seen, this BBC report on Daniela Weiss, this woman representing the settler movement. If you look at things where these aid trucks come in and these settlers block these aid trucks, destroy the food, and then have a barbecue when 5 miles from there people are basically starving to death, then for me, I always try to look at what is the origin of all this? Where does it all come from, this deep racism, right? And Brigitte, before you were talking about, the special relationship that the Elohim have with the people of Israel. And actually, there's a whole chapter in the book, Intelligent Design, Message from the Designers, about the chosen people. So I think it's important to kind of clarify that chosen people term. Very briefly, when the Elohim came, they created the 7 races. They chose this. They had different laboratories around the planet, and they chose the race that was in what is nowadays Israel to be the most. They selected it as it being the most successful one, the most successful creation. So that's what they were chosen for. I think somebody who's chosen is the one who has to show the example. It's never to dominate. The chosen people were here to bring the light to humanity, to be the example of love and humility and kindness. And they did the opposite by dominating other people, taking their homes, land, everything. And they really betray what it truly means to be chosen. When you are chosen, you should be the example. And so out of that idea of the chosen people, they create this racist construct, but deep down actually meant you are supposed to be the light of the Elohim. And so it's no surprise that, since they betrayed that special status so many times, that the Elohim decided to basically, tell all the Jewish people to leave Israel. And for ultimately also the Israeli Raelian movement to be dissolved. So we hope that we can still build the embassy close to what was the land of Israel, but it would be in a Palestinian state if that's where it's going to happen.
I mean, it is true, and I think it is fair to say that the Israeli people or the Jewish people in their chosen status have proved themselves to be like a very powerful race. For example, the captains of industry. Almost all the major media companies are owned by people from the Jewish faith. Banking system, all of that, the usury system, all of that has been set up. They do appear to have like a head start or a way of thinking more than perhaps have done in other people have done who've maybe struggled to find a way, other races, perhaps other religions, maybe. But as you say, it with that, those sort of advantages and those sort of qualities, it does carry its own responsibility. And I think it is also fair to say that it's not anti-Jewish, I don't think, to say that the Jewish political system itself has tried very much to swerve people away from daring to criticize their political choices, as in bombing Gaza the way it is right now. It is an awful situation right now, and I think it just has to stop. And the truth of how it is going to stop, nobody knows yet, except to say we have to stop, and we have to apply love to both sides. That's the difficulty for me. Is it's very easy to say it must stop, and I do believe it must stop, but I don't support in any way violence from either side, the Jewish side or the Hamas, the Palestinian side. So how do we move forward and stop? I think the political system that's working now in the region and around the world isn't working, and it is just, it's causing more problems than anything in these type of environments. You've got to do is look at Ukraine, and one side, economics is a factor in everything. So I would suggest that a new political system perhaps is the way forward. And I do know that the Raelian Movement and Rael and the Elohim have suggested a new political system, and that is Geniocracy. Would either of you take a stab at describing, explaining Geniocracy? Because I think it's important to say that what we have now isn't working, and all we have to do is look at the Ukraine, look at the Middle East to see it is not working, our political system. The way that we think about opposition, the way we think about differences, it's not working. So how does Geniocracy work?
Before I go there, because I understand that the Geniocracy is that organization that will be democratically selected, so where all the leaders will be selected for their capacity to solve the issues that they have to solve. So instead of, right now, the leaders are the people who have the stamina and the gut to say, I'll be the best at solving your problem, without demonstrating that they can do it, right? So it's always, and then they get a lot of money behind them, and then they get elected, and then they do whatever they can to stay at the power and all that. So it has nothing to do with what has to be solved. While we believe that soon we will have the capacity to select the right people for the right place, and then depending on what the needs are in each country or each region, then we can have the proper leaders. But I wanted to go back to what you were saying with about the Jewish people and the fact they were selected, and the fact that they have been achieving a lot. I would say I have a lot of friends who are, here in America, who have received the Jewish education. If you are told from an early age that you're the best, that you're superior, of course you have all the strength, and then you can put all your resources to achieve, because you know that you can do it. So these, of course, we don't know why they were chosen as successful. We don't know what is the tiny bit gene or a couple of genes that made them superior. We don't know. But the fact that they knew that they were there, probably made them more able to achieve more than the others because they didn't have to fight any inferiority situation. So I think that's interesting. We're talking about Israel and what's happening there, and it's not the Jewish people. There are millions of Jews around the world, and they refuse to go to Israel because they were told, I mean, their scriptures say that you're not supposed to go to Israel, to go back to Israel, unless it's to welcome the Messiah, right? I mean, and they are, a lot of them are firmly against what's happening in Israel. So they have that love for the others. They have that deep kindness that their teaching is about, right? So that is something we should say, because the problem is not the whole Jewish people, is those who decided to go with Zionism.
I have lots of Jewish friends, the same as you do, but I don't have one of them that supports what's happening in Gaza. Not one.
Right? Yeah,
and so that's what I'm saying. It's a political issue. It's more of a political issue than a people issue. It becomes a people issue when the people are getting blown to bits, and that for a goal that is not. I don't see the goal. I don't see a successful anything when the journey towards it is the destruction of an entire people. I just don't see, and I don't see that any arrival point is worth that. It's not justified. It has to stop. It's totally unacceptable. And I think whether you're Jewish or Christian or Raelian or anything, if you support what is happening, there is something mentally wrong with people who support this kind of behavior. And there's a lot I can say about it, but I will restrain myself, I promise you. But it is something that has to stop, and it is a political issue, not a people issue, which is why I'm saying the political system is failing. So the people themselves, I mean, even in the Raelian movement, I was a seminar a few years ago, and there was an Israeli guy with a Palestinian woman having a child. They were so in love with each other, and that's the people. The issue is the politics. So as far as I'm concerned, it's, from what I see from my limited knowledge, is politics in almost every destructive scenario around the world. It's a political issue, not a people issue. Politics exploits, petty disputes, sure, but what's the political? I know Geniocracy itself requires a level of intellect in order to hold office, and there is not, as far as I'm aware, you know about this more than I do, there isn't currently an ability to assess individuals' intellect because some people respond well under a stressful situation, tests example, some people don't, but that's nothing to do with intellect. That's to do with how we cope with stress, for example. So there isn't a test yet for a required intellectual capacity, but when there is, surely we must stop having fools in positions of authority. And I say that in all seriousness. I think some of the people that run our world have no business being there, and that again has to stop. So for me, Geniocracy is the way forward for that. Is there any way of assessing yet, Brigitte? I mean, I know you work in science, and maybe this isn't your field, but how close are we to being able to introduce a political system other than the one we have?
Actually, I mean, I have to be very humble there. I know that the technology will probably be available quickly, I would say, right? It's more the decision to use it, and that will take a little longer, in my opinion. And when you were talking about that political part related to what's happening in Israel, in Palestine, I remember seeing in my feed a video of Ted Cruz, who is he's a senator, right, from Texas, and he was asked, "Why do you support what's going on, and you still support Israel?" And he said, "Well, the Bible tells us to protect them." So as a Christian, he's using the Bible to explain why they are doing that. But if we look behind that, there is what in the US, there is what we call AIPAC. AIPAC is one of these PAC from American Israeli, right? And it's the only one that doesn't have to declare that it's made for foreign lobbying, right? While all the other PACs, if you have the Iranian PACs or whatever, they will have to declare that it's foreign country. But AIPAC doesn't have to do it. And it's pouring a lot of money, and I'm pretty sure that Ted Cruz benefits from it. And probably, I mean, I have no evidence of that, but considering what he said, it's probably it's likely that it's happening. So money is behind that. And
just to let you know, Brigitte, just on the money situation. Sorry to interrupt, but I know we're going to be very quick today. AIPAC spent over $100 million on the 2024 elections in the US. $100 million, and AIPAC means the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, and they sponsor dozens and dozens of democratic centers. I say democratic because the article I read was from a right-wing thing, but all of the figures were fact-checked. So I'm sure there are some, Republican senators also taking money, but money. We spoke about this regarding vaccinations. Money has to get out of politics because the powerful lobbying groups. I know AIPAC is a hugely powerful lobbying group in the US and probably in the UK and various other countries. This is not that's not democracy. It's not what democracy is about. It's like a puppet show. You have something in front of the curtain, then you have the truth behind the curtain. The people holding, and that's what our politics is. And this is what I mean about the politics is the problem. The political system is the problem, and the people who have a goal to control just ordinary people like you and I. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, AIPAC would get money out of politics. AIPAC has any lobbying group, whether it be tobacco or oil or anything, got no business really buying influence, and senators have got no business selling influence, selling themselves, which politicians do. It happens in the UK. No, it does. I've seen the figures. I've seen, what I mean. Anyway, so Thomas, what are your thoughts on how we move forward and get rid of the dead wood from our own political system and maybe move on a little bit to something a bit more positive and loving and a kinder political structure?
Yeah, I think the point you brought up about money, it's because it reflects the situation on the ground is that, a lot of politicians they do what they do to get something, money, power, status, everything. And the geniuses that will not govern, but more lead by example, inspire people, I think they will mainly be very altruistic people. I think those tests that we're gonna, soon gonna define them. I think they're gonna measure somebody's altruism. I think that's going to be a very key criteria. We did have, in the course of history, a few examples. For those who remember, it was José Mujica, the former president of Uruguay. For those who remember him, he was president for 5 or 7 years. He would have access to a beautiful palace in Montevideo, but he stayed in his little farm. He could have had this nice big car. He drove every day to work. His little Volkswagen Beetle and the security people behind, right? So, but I think it's really people who want the good for everybody and a deep altruism. Interestingly, just kind of on a side note, when it was, I think the year I discovered the messages over about 30 years ago, I was, I think, first or second year of university. And it was a course in political theory. you can actually mathematically prove that democracy only brings a mediocre result when it comes to the welfare of people. And with welfare, I don't mean GDP. That includes, we really include qualitative aspects in there. So I remember that very clear. I was sitting there in that class as an economics professor talking about, democracy only brings a mediocre result, right? The problem at the time, I remember very clear, they didn't really have an alternative to present. And that's why I think for so long, people are holding on to this democracy being the God. It's what it really is, because they don't see anything else that could work. But as we always say, Israelis, right, the move, the shift, if we decide that route from our current democratic system to a geniocracy, has to be done through a democratic vote. Okay, so it's not going to be imposed. The other thing, it's not a geniocracy is not the most brilliant or even the most altruistic person themselves deciding for no, it's going to be a council, right? We have it's going to be a council of geniuses, more like guiding. Because I think when we think of governance, it's always the idea, oh, these are the laws, I tell you what to do, but I don't see. Maitreya once used that term natural order. I think a really loving, peaceful society, we will kind of find back to a natural order with as little rules and laws as possible. And there will be these geniuses who guide, who inspire humanity. That's how I see it. And I think we have, yes, thanks to the Rael messages, a very enthusiastic and positive alternative to this big, it's really just a paradigm people are stuck in. And I come from Switzerland, is where we have, even you can vote, on everything. And I know it's even Maitreya Rael, I remember it was about 20 years ago, Switzerland refused a residence visa for him in Switzerland. The main reason is because they were considering the movement to be anti-democratic and hence not in line with the the Swiss type of democracy. But they simply didn't understand how, number one, that the shift would be a democratic shift from democracy to geniocracy, and that it would be a council of geniuses, which in Switzerland there is no president. I mean, technically they have one, but there's not one leader. They have a council. There's I think 7 councillors who lead the country, and that's really, if we think of that, I think we have a very inspiring model there.
I think at least talking about this. I mean, it's a hugely in-depth subject that we've just attempted in a short period of time, but it is at least heartening that there is something else, and there is a possibility of something else, which of course is one thing I love about the Raelian movement more than anything else, is the fact that there's always a positive spin on so many aspects of life that many people struggle with. In the Raelian movement, there is a wonderful way of looking at these things, and I think the fact that just this conversation has shown that there is another way to democracy, because almost every person that I ever see interviewed, as you touched on, Thomas, that is asked, so what is the alternative to democracy? They don't know what to say. And the alternative is, and I hope people who hear this start to look into geniocracy, the geniocracy is a possibility, a way forward, a changing point, something that certainly with geniocracy, I don't believe you would have issues in Ukraine. I don't believe you'd have issues in the Middle East. And it is a way forward. And I think it's about time we did something to change the way things are in those regions, in fact, everywhere in the world. So on that note, it's lovely to chat to you. Thanks ever so much for your time, Brigitte and Thomas. And I'll see you again soon, I hope. Lots of love.